The morning started like any other, with excruciating pain shooting through my body and my father's voice booming through the door. Sophia, get up now. You're not missing another day of college. I was 19, and for the past 3 months, my body had been betraying me in ways I couldn't explain. The pain would start in my lower back, spreading like wildfire through my limbs until even breathing hurt. But in our house, pain was just another excuse for weakness. I said get up. The door flew open, and my father, James Mitchell, stood there in his crisp business suit, his face already reddening with anger. As a prominent business executive, image was everything to him, and having a lazy daughter didn't fit his perfect family narrative. "Dad, please," I whispered, trying to sit up despite the stabbing sensation in my spine. "Something's really wrong. I need to see a doctor." His laugh was cold, cutting through the air like ice. "A doctor? For what? So you can waste more of our money proving there's nothing wrong with you?" The last 3 doctors found nothing. He was right about that part. 3 different physicians had run basic tests, finding nothing obvious, but none had done the extensive testing I'd been begging for. Each time, my father's imposing presence and insistence that I was acting out had swayed them toward his view. My mother peeked into the room, her face lined with worry but her voice silent. She'd stopped defending me weeks ago after Dad threatened to cut off my college funding if she enabled my behavior. "Get dressed," Dad ordered, yanking my blanket away. "You have 10 minutes." The simple act of standing sent waves of agony through my body. I grabbed my dresser for support, but my legs buckled beneath me. Instead of helping me up, my father stood over me, his face contorted with rage. Enough of this performance. His hand struck my face with enough force to snap my head to the side. "I've had it with your attention-seeking games." "James," my mother finally spoke up, rushing to my side. "She's in pain." "Pain?" he scoffed. "She's manipulating us, Claire, just like her aunt did before she ran off with that artist. It runs in your family, this dramatic behavior, this need for attention." The mention of my Aunt Sarah, Mom's sister who'd escaped our toxic family dynamic years ago, made something snap inside me. Through tears and gasping breaths, I looked up at him. "If you're so sure I'm faking, take me to the hospital right now. Let them do an MRI. If they find nothing, I'll never complain again." I saw the challenge register in his eyes. My father never backed down from a challenge. It was one of the traits that had made him so successful in business. "Fine," he spat. "We'll end this charade today. Claire, call the hospital and tell them we're coming. When they find nothing, Sophia, you're going to apologize to everyone you've inconvenienced with this nonsense." The drive to the hospital was silent except for my muffled whimpers every time we hit a bump. My father's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched in familiar anger. In the emergency room, his commanding presence initially got the same results as always. The first doctor was ready to dismiss me with anxiety medication, but then something unexpected happened. Dr. Sarah Chen walked in, a new neurologist who didn't know my father and, more importantly, wasn't impressed by him. "Mr. Mitchell," she said firmly after examining me, "your daughter's symptoms are consistent with several serious neurological conditions. I'm ordering an immediate MRI." "This is ridiculous," my father started, but Dr. Chen cut him off. "What's ridiculous is that this young woman has been in obvious distress for months without proper testing. This stops today." For the first time in my life, I saw someone stand up to my father and win. He sat fuming in the waiting room while I was wheeled away for the scan. The MRI machine's loud clicking seemed to count down the moments until everything would change. I closed my eyes, equal parts terrified of them finding something and finding nothing. 2 hours later, Dr. Chen returned with the results, her face serious. She put up several images on the light board, pointing to areas that made my mother gasp and my father lean forward in his chair. "This," she said, indicating a large mass near my spine, "should have been caught months ago. Your daughter hasn't been acting, Mr. Mitchell. She's been suffering from a spinal tumor that's been growing increasingly aggressive." The word tumor seemed to echo in a small room. I watched my father's face drain of color, his usual confident posture crumbling as he stared at the images. But she's only 19, he whispered, his voice suddenly small. "She can't." I didn't. "She needs immediate surgery," Dr. Chen continued, her voice gentler now. "The good news is we caught it before it could cause permanent damage, but only barely." My father turned to look at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw his eyes fill with tears. The hand that had struck me hours earlier now trembled as he reached toward my face, stopping short of touching the bruise he'd left. The mighty James Mitchell was breaking, and this was just the beginning. The days following my diagnosis existed in a strange, suspended reality. My father, who had built his life on control and authority, seemed to shrink with each passing hour. The bruise on my cheek faded, but its shadow lingered in his eyes every time he looked at me. Dr. Chen scheduled my surgery for the following week. The tumor's position is precarious, she explained. We need to act fast, but the procedure carries risks. There's a chance of paralysis if anything goes wrong. I watched my father during these meetings. The man who once dominated every room now sat silent, taking frantic notes with shaking hands. During one consultation, when Dr. Chen mentioned possible complications, he actually excused himself. My mother found him vomiting in the bathroom. The night before my surgery, I couldn't sleep. The pain was constant now, but it wasn't what kept me awake. From down the hall, I heard sounds I'd never heard before, my father crying. I did this, his voice carried through the thin walls. I made it worse, Claire. Our baby was suffering, and I hit her. What kind of monster am I? My mother's response was too quiet to hear, but the sound of my father's breakdown continued. The man who had never shown weakness, who had taught me that tears were for the feeble, was sobbing uncontrollably. Using the wall for support, I made my way to their door. It was cracked open, and through it, I saw my father on his knees, his head in my mother's lap as she stroked his hair. I keep seeing her face, he choked out. Every time she fell, every time she begged for help, I punished her. I called her weak. I struck my sick child. Before I could move away, he looked up and saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Me, leaning against the doorframe in pain, and him, kneeling on the floor with tears streaming down his face. Sophia, he whispered, my name sounding like a prayer and a plea. I wanted to turn away, to hold onto my anger, but something in his broken expression made me stay. He stood slowly, approaching me like I might shatter. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted, his voice raw. I don't know if it can be fixed. The pain hit again, making me gasp and stumble. Instead of demanding I straighten up or accusing me of exaggeration, my father gently caught me, helping me to sit on their bed. Remember when I was 7, I said through gritted teeth, and I fell off my bike? You made me get back on immediately, said pain was just weakness leaving the body. He flinched at the memory. I was wrong. God, I was wrong about so many things. You taught me that showing pain meant I was failing you. I continued. So when this started, I tried so hard to hide it. Maybe if I'd spoken up sooner. No, he cut me off firmly. Don't you dare blame yourself. This is on me. All of it. He knelt in front of me, his hands hovering uncertainly near mine. I was so focused on making you strong, I became your greatest weakness. My mother sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. For the first time in months, I let myself lean into her comfort. I'm scared, I admitted, something I would never have dared say before. Me too, my father whispered, and those 2 words represented the biggest change of all. James Mitchell, admitting fear, admitting weakness, admitting he was wrong. He reached up slowly, his fingers ghosting over the faded bruise on my cheek. When you get through this, not if, but when, things will be different. I will be different. How can I believe that? I asked, the question holding years of doubt. Because I've never been more terrified of losing anything in my life, he answered, his voice breaking. Not my company, not my reputation, nothing. You're my daughter, and I almost let my pride blind me to your pain. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for the chance to earn it. Later that night, as I lay in my bed trying to find a position that hurt less, my door creaked open. Instead of the angry demands I was used to, my father entered quietly, carrying a chair. I thought, maybe I could sit with you for a while. He asked uncertainly. When I nodded, he settled in beside my bed. Try to rest. I'll be right here. As I drifted between sleep and pain, I heard him speaking softly. I remember the day you were born, he said, probably thinking I was asleep. You were so small, so perfect. I promised I'd protect you from everything. Instead, I became something you needed protection from. Please, God, give me the chance to make this right. Morning would bring the surgery and all its uncertainties. But that night, watching my father maintain his vigil, I saw the first real sign that sometimes the hardest tumors to remove aren't the ones that show up on an MRI. The morning of my surgery, I woke to find my father still in the chair beside my bed, his suit wrinkled from the night watch. For the first time in my life, he hadn't shaved or meticulously styled his hair. The mighty executive who once fired an employee for wearing the wrong shade of blue looked completely undone. As the nurses prepped me for surgery, he stayed close, his eyes tracking every movement, every wince of pain on my face. When Dr. Chen arrived to explain the procedure one final time, he asked questions in a voice I'd never heard before. Humble, almost pleading. "Please," he said as they prepared to wheel me away, "she's my little girl." Those words, so simple, yet he'd never said them before. I'd always been his legacy, his successor, but never just his little girl. The last thing I saw before the anesthesia took hold was my father pressing his hand against the viewing window, tears streaming down his face. I learned later that during the 8-hour surgery, my father never moved from the waiting room. My mother tried to make him eat, but he couldn't. His assistant called about an emergency board meeting. He told her to give his position to someone else. "My daughter is in surgery," he'd said. "The company can burn to the ground for all I care." When Dr. Chen finally emerged, her face was tired but smiling. "We got it all," she announced. "The tumor's gone, and there's no sign of paralysis." My father, the man who prided himself on perfect composure, fell to his knees right there in the waiting room. His sobs echoed through the hallway, years of manufactured strength crumbling in an instant. Recovery was slow and painful, but different from before. Every grimace of pain wasn't met with accusations of weakness, but with gentle concern. My father learned from the nurses how to help me walk, how to manage my medication, how to assist with physical therapy exercises. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the surgery, my physical therapist commented on the change. "Your father's like a different person," she said as we worked on my mobility. "When you first came in, he was intimidating. Now he's the most attentive parent I've seen." She was right. The transformation was stunning. The man who once refused to miss work for my school events now spent hours helping me relearn how to walk. His phone, once surgically attached to his hand, stayed silent in his pocket. A month into my recovery, he came to my room carrying a small box. "I've been going through old things," he said, sitting carefully on the edge of my bed. Inside the box were photographs, hundreds of them, chronicling my childhood. This one, he pulled out a photo of me at age 6, trying to climb a tree. "You fell right after this was taken. Instead of comforting you, I made you climb it again. I thought I was teaching you resilience." His voice cracked. "I was teaching you to ignore your own pain." He showed me picture after picture, each one accompanied by a memory and an apology. The father who had never admitted fault was now acknowledging every mistake, every moment he chose in pride over love. "I'm stepping down as CEO," he announced suddenly, putting the photos away. "The board can find someone else to run things." "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he interrupted gently. "I've spent your whole life choosing that company over you. Never again." 3 months after the surgery, Dr. Chen declared me tumor-free. The scars were healing and my strength was returning. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was in the way our family operated. My father attended therapy, both alone and with me. He learned to talk about feelings instead of suppressing them, to show vulnerability instead of demanding perfection. The man who once ruled through fear now asked for family game nights and Sunday dinners. 6 months to the day after my diagnosis, he organized a family dinner. As we sat around the table, me now able to sit comfortably, Mom smiling more than I'd ever seen, and Dad in casual clothes instead of his usual suit, he raised his glass. "To second chances," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And to my daughter, who taught me that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about having the courage to get back up and the wisdom to help others when they fall." Looking at him now, it was hard to believe this was the same man who had once slapped me for showing weakness. The tumor that had threatened my life had also broken down walls we lived behind for years, revealing a father I never knew existed. "And to healing," I added, raising my own glass. "All kinds of healing." His eyes met mine, and in them I saw not the stern executive or the demanding father, but simply a man who had learned the hardest lesson of his life, that sometimes our greatest strength comes from admitting our greatest mistakes. Sometimes the things that threaten to break us end up breaking down the walls we never knew we needed to tear down.